Over at DC Comics, the publisher is set to plunge over into a 2-month horror themed story called Night Terrors that's set to take a quick publishing detour into the world of some of the DC Universe's worst fears. The storyline starts off over in Night Terror's First Blood on sale today, featuring the investigation of the trinity of the DC Universe, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, as they explore the Hall of Justice and find one of their oldest enemies. This causes them to team up with an unlikely hero, Boston Brand, as they explore some of the villains leading towards the new antagonist to the DC Universe called Insomnia. My name is Arako Braddock, and today, let's go ahead and dive into the pages of Night Terrors with Night Terrors First Blood Issue 1. But before we get deeper into the video, I want to go ahead and encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button if you enjoy our contents. And I want to go ahead and introduce Night Terrors First Blood with DC Comics solicitation text for the story. When Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman find the body of one of their earliest enemies inside the Hall of Justice, their investigation takes them past the land of the living, beyond the land of the dead, and directly to a new villain called Insomnia, who uses his powers to engulf every single hero and villain in their own dark and twisted nightmares. The only way to save the world is to call for the help of an unlikely hero, Deadman. The thrills and chills of Night Terrors are brought to the DC Universe by DC architect and superstar writer Joshua Williamson, with horrific art by comics legend Howard Porter. I want to go ahead and introduce our creative team over on Night Terrors First Blood. This issue is written by Joshua Williamson, featuring artwork from Howard Porter, colors from Brad Anderson, and letters from Troy Peteri. Also want to go ahead and introduce our cover for the issue, coming in directly from Howard Porter and Hi-Fi. Here's a look at the cover for Night Terrors First Blood. I really like how this cover kind of teases some of the more expressionistic art that we're going to be seeing from Howard Porter in the issue that we'll get into in just a moment here. Want to extend a quick thank you over to Adventures in Poor Taste for posting this preview of Night Terrors First Blood so quickly as well. And let's go ahead and get into some of the interior artwork for the series. I think we have a really interesting context to examine Howard Porter's art in over in this issue. I think I'm used to seeing Howard Porter's art in the context of DC Comics with a more kind of refined line. I did have the opportunity to go ahead and read some of the interviews leading up to Night Terrors, and I was able to see that Howard Porter is looking to lend a more kind of expressionistic and loose style over to this issue in order to capitalize on some of those horror themes. And I think that Porter did a wonderful job adapting his art to this kind of new context. I think the way that Porter utilizes his sort of curvy line over in the issue recalls some of my favorite work from off the beaten path artists from DC, from creators like Carmine Di Giandomenico, as well as Guillaume March. Guillaume March is also going to be contributing over to Night Terrors Batman. So it's going to be great to see some of this really kind of impressionistic art captured throughout the pages of Night Terrors from DC. And also, I think that Porter does an excellent job kind of switching gears and heading into the horror sequences when the scenes call for it. I think he uses really dynamic page layouts like this page that we have up on the screen, showing off this really horrific status quo over for Dr. Destiny in the story. And when we get to the kind of second half of the issue, when the new villain Insomnia comes in, the art gets as wild and as expressionistic as you can possibly imagine. I think colorist Brad Anderson does a great job picking up some of the slack over for Porter's work. As you can see from pages like this that we have up on the screen, there are a ton of characters over in this issue as this storyline kind of sets up the full nature of the DC universe. And one thing that this issue does really nicely too is also kind of preview some of the upcoming 2-issue miniseries for characters like Batman as well. So really happy to see all those kind of different contexts captured from Porter Now, as far as the writing goes, I think Joshua Williamson did a wonderful job pacing Night Terror's First Blood. I read the kind of solicitation teasing the inciting incident over with John D. Dr. Destiny, and I think that the issue does a great job filling readers in over on that status quo when the issue opens. And when it kind of segues into the piece with Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman investigating kind of what happened over with this character, I think the book picks up a ton of momentum really early on. And also, when Deadman entered into the story, I think the perspective that Deadman brings is really fascinating. I thought the new villain introduction of Insomnia over in this series was quite horrifying as well. Also, the kind of dialogue on the last page of the issue, I think, was written a little bit clunky, and it was something that I had to return to a couple times. But overall, here, I think that the plotting and the direction of this issue is really solid, and I love the kind of wide context that it brings to kind of pull in the greater DC universe. If Joshua Williamson and some of the creators can keep kind of tying in more Dawn of DC material, maybe this issue and series as a whole won't feel like that kind of stopgap, causing us to kind of pause the continuity on Dawn of DC. Dawn of DC has basically just gotten started over at the publisher in the past couple months. So I know a lot of people were worried that this issue was going to derail the momentum. And I think it all kind of comes down to how the creators, as well as DC's editorial, manage this series. But I would say for this first chapter introducing this Night Terror's tale, we're definitely off to a good start over in this first story. So at the end of the day here, I'm incredibly happy over with Night Terror's First Blood. I think this issue does a great job presenting the inciting incident for the series, involving several aspects of DC characters and setting up the new threat of Insomnia. I hope going forward that there's a little bit more kind of clear narrative resolved over for the character of Insomnia. I think he could definitely be a really strong villain if he's written correctly. I want to know from you, what were some of your thoughts over on DC's debut for Night Terrors? Did you enjoy that really expressionistic art coming in from Howard Porter? And what are your thoughts on the really interesting way that this series kind of sets up the inciting incident for Night Terrors, only to have it play out a little bit farther into the story? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for coming to check out our review of Night Terror's First Blood. We'll be back to cover everything Night Terrors related and see what the future holds for the rest of the DC universe. Thank you so much for coming to check out our video, and I'll see you soon. Bye.